The tech industry is a male-dominant space. Black women are underrepresented through the entire industry, from entry-level positions all the way up to leadership. Unfortunately, we face gender bias, discrimination, and other unique issues that make it very difficult for us to progress professionally. Hi, everybody. It's your host, Samantha and Gift. And we're back with another episode that you don't want to miss on the Deeper Than Tech podcast, where we talk about how to grow your career in the industry that was not designed with us in mind. We'll be diving deep into this topic, but before we do, if you're loving this podcast so far, make sure you go over to Apple Podcasts and give us a 5-star review. So usually in tech, we as Black women seem to have some different challenges than our other coworkers. So what challenges do Black women face when pursuing a career in tech?
I think there are different challenges faced by Black women. I can mention a few. I think the first one for me is the stereotype that comes alongside the role. So first of all, I've heard from people telling me that, if you're working in tech, it's a more male-dominated field and men thrive more in that space than women. It's just stereotypes from people that don't have the experience, but they feel like based on the numbers. Of course, we all know that the ratio of males to female in the industry is a little bit more higher if you are looking at it from that perspective. But I also feel like there are amazing women that are thriving in this space. So yeah, the first thing that I know that is a challenge is when you meet people and they tell you that, you shouldn't be here because you don't fit the description of people that work in tech, Another thing is the lack of representation. Like I said, a little bit more males than females in the industry. Now is a bit better. When I started my journey 6 years ago, it was very evident in every space that I would go to. But now I see more people. I also have a lot of communities that are more focused on, helping Black women thrive in the industry, which is nice to see now. Even though there is lack of representation, I like their communities and their programs that, helping bring more women into the industry. And then I think the final challenge that I've seen specifically for myself, bias, discrimination. And this is also very on a personal experience level. Maybe other people might not have the same experience that I've had, but yeah, I've been in spaces where people would tell me that I know that they're trying to just have conversations, but it doesn't have to revolve around my gender, for example, or how I look, so sometimes it doesn't come off as that, but that's how I perceive it, right? And maybe the intention from them is different, but it just so happens that that's the situation. And I think discrimination and bias, lack of representation, and the stereotypes are like three challenges that I feel like Black women face in the industry.
No, I definitely agree with you on all three of those points. Just being a woman in tech is also a barrier for us, and being a Black woman in tech is an extra layer of challenges that we have to face. It sounds a little intimidating, right? When you're trying to come into the industry that's very male dominant. Is there some type of piece of advice you would give somebody who's a Black woman trying to enter tech?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that first, if you are trying to break into the industry, it really helps to not focus on the number. It helps to just look out for communities or groups that are encouraging you to give you the boost, because learning to code or just breaking into the industry is very hard. And depending on your personal situation, you might have a lot of challenges that you're facing that would even make you say, I don't fit. I don't feel like this space is for me. Then I should just give up. So one thing I would say is first, find communities that are specifically catered to Black women. You feel you feel like you're in a safe space to share your experience, right? And there are a few of them. There is, where I'm from, Nigeria, we have one for women. It's called She Code Africa. It's actually a community for African women. I know that there's also one called Black Girls Code in some of those communities. But yeah, joining one of those communities will really help you with motivation as well. When you see other people that have gone ahead to build successful careers for themselves, that would also motivate you to, keep pushing. Yeah.
So even if you don't have that community in your job, because a lot of times you'll be the only Black person, there are communities outside that you could always lean on. Do you have any strategies for when you're in these tough situations that you can use to like overcome these challenges?
Yeah. For some of them, I would say yes. For some of them, I would say no. I'm still like navigating it. I could talk about the first one I shared, which is a lack of representation or stereotypes. When I hear someone tell me, yeah, you don't fit the description of a technical or software developer, it depends. If they're being true, then I don't answer them. But if it's someone I can actually try to educate, I would then go on to say, you don't have to have the perception that because it's an engineering role, it's only fit for a specific, type of person. So also just educating people to have them change their perspective helps. But in real sense, you can't always do that because sometimes people come at you like it's an attack. So you can really respond to them. But in situations where like in person, if I am talking to somebody, we're having a conversation and it comes up, I'm happy to tell them. But online, I think that's the best way to manage that situation. Talking about lack of representation, what really helps is being an advocate. As much as you can, be an advocate for Black women. So if you're in a space or you work at a job where you're the only woman there and you're hiring, should try to refer other women in tech that you know that they also have the experience for that job so that you can at least grow the amount of Black women in your company, and even goes as far as just referring other people to roles that, because I know that the industry, there's always like people reaching out to you for opportunities. So if you get an opportunity and you feel like you don't have time for it or it's not something you can do, try to pass that down to another Black woman in tech. Just try as much as you can to make sure that we're represented in the industry through different means, right? And then the last one, the discrimination, that's also another interesting one that I don't personally know I've not figured out the best way. It depends on where it happens, right? And the kind of situation. If it's at work, I like that where I work, we have like a code of conduct, for example, that if you find that someone is doing like harassing you in a way, you have to report that. You have like structured process to go about reporting that. If it's in a community, like I think that some community also have code of conduct, which is nice that you can always go and report. But in situations where that's not the case, I think the best thing to do is if you have the capacity. Personally, I don't have the energy for, fighting, and all of that. I just ignore. I know it's hot, but I just ignore and let it go. In situations where I can report it, definitely I will by all means do that.
You talked about this code of conduct and like how you can report incidents. I personally don't feel comfortable going through those channels. So what kind of piece of advice do you have for people who like are like me, who's like, maybe I shouldn't do that?
Yeah, I think it helps to have an ally in this situation. So for example, if it's in a professional space where you work and you feel like you're not safe doing that, it helps to have like an ally, someone that you can be trusted, that you can first share with them and see if it's the best route to take. And then they can also share the best approach to take in reporting that. But I want to believe that if a company has a discrimination policy in place, again, I don't know because I've not been in a situation where I can say this is what happened and this is how it ended up. But I feel like if there is a discrimination policy in place, it should be in favor of whoever is reporting and not the other way around. Otherwise, then there is bias there as well. So yeah, I definitely know that it might be daunting. Like it's hard to come out and speak about stuff like that, let alone speaking and then getting ignored or speaking and then, nothing is done about it. So yeah, it's a very touchy subject, I think.
Yeah, I've seen a few cases where people have gone through those channels. Not saying you shouldn't do it, like that's what they're there for, but they haven't got the results that they were expecting. Like it's like you physically see it happening. You have other people backing you up, but then the HR is like, nothing happened. I'm just like, wow. But that's for another day.
Yeah.
So you mentioned this a little bit about like making sure that you pass down opportunities to other Black women in tech. Are there any other ways to gain more visibility in the space and make sure that you're successful?
Yeah, definitely. I think that as a Black woman in tech, it really helps to put yourself and your work out there, essentially sharing your stuff publicly. I've done that for the better part of my career and it has really helped me a lot. And just to clarify what you can do, right? So if you're working as a software engineer, for example, you can start out by being part of a community, being active in a community. And if you're working on stuff, if it's under any NDA, you can share that on like LinkedIn or GitHub. Just make sure that if I search your name on Google, something comes up that, can attest to the work that you've done in your career, for example. That is how you start off. And then going forward from that, you can start mentoring people. You can volunteer to either be an event organizer for one of these communities that you're in. This is like steps that I took. And going further from there, you can now start sharing knowledge like through either videos on YouTube or speaking at events or helping like a small group, like have study groups where you help teach them how to code, for example. All of these are different ways that you can build like a name or a brand. I don't want to say personal brand, but I think that's what it is. So when you start small, you build up from what you've done. And then the effect of doing all of this is that going further in your career, you'd see that you find more opportunity comes your way because you're now publicly seen and people can attest to the work that you've done, and you get a lot of opportunities that you don't even know that this is possible in the first place before doing it. And that has been my situation, because how I started, for example, when I was learning how to code, I would share, this is a project that I've done and this is what I learned, this is what I'm still figuring out. And then going forward from there, I started writing blogs about it, and then I started making videos, contributing to open source. So I've been doing a lot of that over the course of my career, and it has really helped me a lot. Yeah.
I love that. If y'all don't know, Gift is like tech famous. She has a large following on Twitter. So follow her advice if you want to grow your account. Just one more last question. I would like to end this on a great positive note. What is the best thing about being a Black woman in tech?
Interesting. I think first is the fact that I can, beat all those stereotypes. For example, where I'm from, it is very prominent for someone to tell you to your face that you shouldn't be an engineer, Things are a little bit different. But I remember when I was doing computer science in school, because that's what I did. Of course, my department, we had fewer women and all of that. And then I would have someone tell me, am I sure that this is what I want to do for the rest of my career? Or am I just doing this because I need a certificate, for example? So just hearing those things and then seeing where I am right now and the things that I've been able to do, and not just me, but other people around me as well, makes me really happy to be a Black woman in tech, because of course I've debunked all the myths, all the stereotypes, definitely not true. So I feel like the best thing here is also being represented. Wherever I go to, I find that I'm representing me, my community, and also my country. It's just like, it's a proud thing to have. And I like that when I look back at where I started from, I can see that, Gift, you've been doing this and you're thriving in the industry regardless of what, people might say. So yeah, I think the biggest part of the community of being a Black woman in tech is that regardless of whatever people tell you, as long as you're doing the work and you're putting it in, definitely going to be successful in the field. So yeah, I think one other thing I would mention is the fact that there are communities, people willing to just help you, people just willing to celebrate you. For example, like on Instagram, there are a lot of creators that are Black women that I follow. And when I see them post stuff, I'm like, wow, this is nice. Kudos. And it makes me happy to see other people thriving as well in the industry. So yeah.
I love that energy. I'm going to take it today and use it for the rest of my day. Thank you so much.